Welcome to the channel. My name is Stu and this is a story about returning to play electric guitar after putting it down nearly 40 years ago and the lessons learned to get up to speed with the many changes in the music industry when looking to purchase guitars, amps and pedals. So do check out the previous videos, which is the introduction to my journey. So it's been a bit of a journey, but we finally come to the part where it's about using all this equipment to record songs and theme tracks that I've been writing. Now, much as it's fun looking at various guitars, amplifiers and pedals, despite what it might look like, my real interest is in writing and playing, and for that I find that I need to get time to focus, and that's not always easy if you have a busy lifestyle. Always something to come along and break your attention. Do comment below if you have that as an issue, and your own thoughts and your own approach to writing and recording. So like many folks do, I downloaded various free software available just to get to grips with what I feel that I would need for my recording and compositions. After all, professional software is expensive and buyer beware. It's not always intuitive to use, let alone compatible with your computer setup. Or indeed, it might not work along with other software that you may have. So we're going to be leaving this studio. We're going to move into the other one, which some people would call a control room. For me, it's called an edit suite, but we're going to move through there and we'll carry on the conversation. Now, for those of you who've been following my journey, you will have picked up bits and pieces regarding my actual profession. And of course, working in the broadcast, video and film industry at various levels of production, as a creative director wearing many hats, I've had access to all kinds of software management and equipment. But this music venture is separate from that kind of world, and really to some degree I'm starting at the beginning. So again, back to researching on the internet, and after much consideration, having over many years worked with complex production equipment and software, I've learned that if you can keep it simple, then keep it simple. If you bog yourself down with hardware and software that, quite frankly, you're not even going to scrape the surface of what complex products can do, then do yourself a favor. Think again and think smart. Don't overcomplicate a process. Now, I used to get people asking me what kind of camera should I use for this or that. And for many people, the answer is simple. If you've got a decent phone camera, well, use that, because content is king. Enjoy what you're creating instead of pulling your hair out trying to get expensive and complicated products to do your bidding. Don't use a sledgehammer to crack a nut. When you're a professional working commercially, that of course is a different conversation. Okay. So when recording, creating music, the accepted software method to use in the music industry is a digital audio workstation, or DAW for short. And the usual suspects are Presonus, Steinberg, Cubase, Avid, Pro Tools, and there's a few others. And what did I choose? Well, I went for a piece of software called Reaper. It's not as complicated as the others I've mentioned, but it's certainly very good at what it does and very affordable by comparison. And a big reason I chose it is because I don't want to spend too much time having to get to grips with software that has multiple levels of choices that, quite frankly, I'm not going to use. So keeping things relatively simple, I'll be recording my guitar directly from my amplifier, the way that I want that to sound. For added instrument effects, such as drums and keyboards, I'll be using additional high-quality software to create the tracks I need. So for me, the DAW just needs to be able to handle general engineering duties and, of course, be able to integrate with other professional software, such as digital musical instruments, and be able to output to various professional formats or files that I might want to share with other musicians, because I might be collaborating with others. So there's a need to have a level of professional industry standard capability with your software, and Reaper certainly does all of that. So I'd certainly recommend it. Now, once again, I'm not paid by anyone to review any products that I mention. These are my own opinions. In regard to other software companies, I use IK Media and EZ, who produce excellent studio recordings of a range of instruments. And as for computers, well, I use, as you can see in the studio here, we're Mac based. But of course, PCs are very capable, and certainly they're more accessible in terms of cost up against Apple products. But as long as you have enough grunt in your setup, both systems are good to go. Just make sure you have enough processing power. Otherwise, you're going to get very frustrated with software freezing or crashing or other irritations that accompany an underpowered machine. In regard to recording amplifiers in the studio, I use two microphones, that being the Shure SM57 and the Sennheiser MD421. And here you can see the placement of those mics. I've got the SM57 here at the edge of the dust cover, and the MD421 is placed around about the middle of the cone. Now this allows for each mic to capture the tones at what they do best in regard to their design pattern. In this example, I'm using a Sennheiser mic, an MD421, a Series 2. Placement is usually either at the edge of the speaker dust cap or in the middle of the cone. So testing the mic across the speaker should determine your own preference. Dual miking, of course, is very popular in recording studios. When it comes to the actual location I record this, there's a small sound booth in the control room which was built for voiceover work, which we did regularly for TV commercials, documentaries, and a host of other commercial applications. But of course, you don't need to have anything so elaborate, but being able to control any ambient sound reflections is important because you want to keep that from contaminating your recording. The mics go into the mixer and into the DAW, and all is balanced in the timeline. A common method of getting vocals or instruments into your DAW is by using a digital audio interface, such as this Focusrite 2. It's a 2-channel which connects to the computer via USB. And as I mentioned before, I also use my Moore GE250 multi-effects unit, where I can plug the guitar into the unit and create whatever guitar tone that I'm looking for, and in turn this connects into the computer via, once again, USB. Now, I also on occasion use a physical keyboard. You can see here connected to the computer, and I find this a better setup as opposed to using a graphic on the monitor. I'm no keyboards player, but I do find it much easier to play what's needed with more feeling on a real keyboard, but each to their own. Being able to hear the recorded material correctly is of course very important, and while I use headphones for general mixing duties, I do have a decent set of studio monitors here, which in this case are KRK6 with a bass driver, and this setup has variable controls on the speakers themselves to help compensate for room ambient anomalies. Now, before I commit to completing a project, I'm going to leave it a few days, because a fresh set of ears can be good for picking up things that may need alteration. In the days of video film production, depending on the project, we would regularly use focus groups to watch and to listen to a completed product. And they would fill in a form of carefully produced marketing questions, and then over coffee and biscuits take part in a general group chat about what they had seen and heard. Now this was important because it was a good place to pick up on points that were letting that production down. And of course, not all points that are raised were taken on board, as you do have to interpret these results very carefully. You can't please everyone. When it comes to my own music, if I'm working for myself and not a collaborative effort, then other than some close friends who are interested in what I do, I have no interest in listening to the opinions of a wider audience. Now, that's not an arrogant stance. It's simply, if you're producing something that, well, it fulfills your creativity, your inner thoughts and feelings, then they are what they are. And if it speaks to others, then that can be a nice bonus. So unless you're seeking to create a commercial #1 hit where you need to have a wider opinion, it can be unwise to go seeking the views of others regarding a personal project. Criticism can be hard on you, especially if your creation is close to your heart. Now, of course, for the professional songwriter, sound engineer and producer, just like the role of a professional film director, producer, it's a different world. Clients, budgets, production schedules, they're just some of the things that dictate the course of a given commercial project. So if, like me, this is a hobby, even a passionate hobby, never get to a place where you lose the enjoyment of what gave you so much fun at the beginning. That is so important. So there you have it. It's been a really enjoyable journey, and I'm now busy writing and recording, and I hope that in some way I may have inspired some to press on with your musical passion. And if you've liked the content, then subscribing and hitting the usual buttons, they're much appreciated. And please do add your own comments below, or ask any questions you think that I might be able to help you with. Now, I'm not one for really making social media content just for the sake of it, but if you would like me to make any particular videos on the basis of the content that I've already made, perhaps going into further detail or even looking at a particular product, do let me know, and I'll see if I'm able to do something about that. So until next time, the journey creating music begins. Take care.